welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today's guest is an American singer and rapper from Baltimore-based, kind of best known to being the frontman of the synth-pop band Future Islands. We have Samuel T. Herring. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. I'm talking to luminaries now, talking to major people, and yes. So, you know, I want to get into like really early kind of questions, and just briefly, because you probably have to talk about this a million times, but describe your background and how you got started in music.
Well, I started writing when I was about 13 to 14 years old. I had an older brother who, you know, if for the people out there that have older siblings, you know, usually if you're into music, you got linked in by an older sibling. And my brother, you know, he was 3.5, 4 years older than me. And he was really into like weird rock and stuff. But, you know, I like bands like Primus and Danzig I was listening to when I was like 10, which are pretty weird bands. So, but I didn't have any of those CDs. And then I also loved, you know, when I was riding in the car with my mom, which is the only time I'd be in the car, she would always play oldies stations. So it's kind of funny. Like when I was like 10 or 11, I like wish that I was born, you know, 30 or 40 years before, because I wanted to be like in a doo-wop or, you know, like an R&B, like Temptations were like the Temptations were my first favorite group when I was 5, 6 years old, was like my first tape. So like these kinds of funny things, like I think would inform me later. But, you know, I always loved to sing, you know, singing with my mom and stuff like that. My brother. But then when I was 13, my brother like plugged me into hip hop. Yeah. And my 13th birthday, he gave me 3 CDs that changed my life. It was De La Soul, Balloon Mind State, Digable Planets, Blowout Comb, and Channel Live Station Identification, which is all KRS-One produced record. Channel Live, I don't know if you know Channel Live, but they're all kind of a lesser known New York group that were really awesome. And then it's the Alpha, the Omega. We're gonna squash these like MCs like Sega. My parents wouldn't buy me the Nintendo, so I had the Sega. So when I heard that on my CD, I was like, somebody likes Sega, man. But yeah, basically at that point, you know, I'm 13, going on 14-year-old kid. I'm, of course, you know, in limbo with my friend groups. I'm starting to think about the darker sides of life, feeling isolated. So I start writing poetry and then also falling in love with hip hop at the same time. Like I found the link between the two. Sure. And so while I was writing this kind of like emo, you know, gothic emo poetry as a 14-year-old, I was also trying to write, you know, braggadocious verse over here to try to give myself, I mean, really, like it took me years to understand how that was like, it was an armor, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was like that, hearing these stories, you know, when I'm listening to like New York or Los Angeles hip hop, and I'm like, I'm in small town, like really small town of 3,000 in North Carolina, and nobody knows what I'm listening to. Like it made me feel kind of like the music found me. But it also, it showed me that you can have a voice and that you can, you know, because this is the age of Mo Money, Mo Problems and getting jiggy with it, as, you know, this same time period. And I didn't connect with that music, you know, but I was connecting with people that were telling harder stories, like Goody Mob Soul Food, which is still like one of my top 5 albums in any genre of all time. Yeah. Just like real stories. So that's pretty much where it started, just writing to kind of understand myself, or like trying to pull something from myself, because it gave me a voice. It made me feel like I had a power that nobody else had, like around where I come from. And then that just carried me through high school. And then when I got to college, you know, I was looking for a producer to make beats. And then I met my buddy William, who is the bass player in Future Islands. And we met like first day of art school, and he gave me this weird ass CD that he had made that summer, which was like, it sounded like Kraftwerk like if Kraftwerk made an album on like the first Apple computer and then just set it on fire. It was this weird document, you know. It was one of those little like 3-inch CDs that held like 22 minutes of music. These weird CDs that existed do you remember those things?
I do. We're around the same age. So yeah, I remember those.
So it's like, what happened? Where did those come from? And where did they go? Just like, it's like somebody decided to make a 7-inch on a CD.
Yeah, like the high school that I went to, we had a bunch of would-be producers in the basement, and we had like a really good band. Went to City College in Baltimore, and so we had a really like nice band, and we had a whole producers wing in the basement, and I was just like, okay. And I'll speak on my corniness and not to deviate too far, but I wrote a DJ Clue style and performed a DJ Clue style like rap song with the ad libs and all of that stuff about Macbeth.
What?
Yes. And it was called Murder Mac. It was ridiculous. And I found like a dubbing machine, and I was like, I'm going to record this because I want to impress this girl real quick. And that was what my energy was.
Did it work?
It did. She remembered.
Hey. Hey.
And it was like one of those things where I used to write rhymes and poetry or what have you in City, and I would keep them in 2 different composition books. One was blue, one was black, and the rhymes were in the black one. The morose emo stuff was in the blue one. And I just remember I left it under my chair, and my chemistry teacher found it.
Yeah.
No, actually, she found the emo one, and she wrote in there. She wrote a note in red ink. People don't want anything to happen to you. It's all going to be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was good.
Damn it!
I'm glad she didn't take you to the side. Like, we need to have a talk.
Right.
We're bringing in the school psychologist. Anyways, I have a story, but it was in Baltimore. I had an acupuncture meeting. The one time I went to acupuncture, I guess I went once while I was on tour because I have really busted knees, but I had to fill out the questionnaire before they did the session and all this stuff. And it was like, do you ever think about suicide? I was like, yeah, from time to time, no big deal. And then all of a sudden, like I turn in the questionnaire, and then 4 doctors come in the room and have a sit down with me.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, no. It keeps me closer to life, death, the understanding that darkness, it keeps me closer to life. They're like, this guy is crazy. He's sticking with needles. Anyways, but that's real,
No, that is real.
It's real. It's like people have thoughts. I mean, when I think of people that don't ever think about that dark side, it's like, man, you're missing something.
It's that thing like of intrusive thoughts and things like that. It's like, this might be terrible and you might be fixed on it for a moment. It's like, that's not you. That's you at that second or what have you, but let it roll. And some people get hooked on those intrusive thoughts and they think it's a value on them. Like, oh, I'm a bad person. It's like, no, you just wanted to drop kick that old lady for some reason. I don't know, but it's an intrusive thought. It's fine.
No, but getting back to the thing, like basically William gave me this CD, and then I was really impressed by it, and we just started talking about making a project, and that became our first band. But it was one of those funny things, like when my brother was so when he went off to college, that was my freshman year his freshman year of college, my freshman year of high school. So it's kind of like the first time I had the house to myself, And my brother was like, he always kind of sucked the air from the room. He's a really big presence, a really charismatic, and he's a hilarious guy, also a great performer and writer. So it's kind of like me growing, but then I never wanted to be in bands because that's what he did. He had his like high school band, and then he went to college and formed a band. And I was just focused on rap. That's what I wanted to do, and that's where I felt like I brought value, or I had a voice. But then me and William had this idea to do a band, but it was more like in the idea of performance art, which was kind of what I was really into. So I kind of got tricked into singing in a band because I could sing, I could sing, but it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was probably for me at that age, I felt like maybe singing was too open, maybe it took the shield down too much, if that makes sense. I mean, maybe I'm realizing this right now, but in a way, like it felt too, I don't know. I don't really like rock music that much. There's periods, certain heavy things, but in general, like what I heard on the radio growing up, and the things that so many of my friends grew up on, even like, I don't care about Nirvana. Like, I don't care about the Smashing Pumpkins. Sorry, Rob, if I'm hurting your feelings or something.
This is a personal affront. Feel besmirched.
But it's just so much of the stuff I was like, these people aren't saying anything, and they have no style. I want style. But I mean, but then I found style in like Joy Division and Kraftwerk, and then that was kind of where me and William connected, because Kraftwerk was, William's like, have you ever heard Kraftwerk? And I'm like, I've heard of them because they are sampled by Africa Bambaataa, but do you know Africa Bambaataa? And he's like, no, I don't know that. So then we're like, he's playing me the original Kraftwerk and I'm playing him Planet Rock. Yeah. And then we kind of connected in this weird way. But then, so that was kind of the model of the first band was Kraftwerk and performance art. And then, years later, we're still doing it. I mean, that's kind of the wild thing. I mean, that first group started in February of 2003. So, I mean, I'm still making music with Garrett, who's the keyboardist in Future Islands, and William, who's the bass player. Yeah. We had that first band for 2.5 years, and then Future Islands began.
So what? So I'm gonna go to previous interviews, because I'm sure you've had several. So this is going to be a thing. Well, probably not several, more than several. What is the weirdest or funniest question you've been asked in an interview?
Oh,
yeah. That's the hard hitting ones right here.
Man, I'm terrible with these kinds of questions. I feel like I used to have a really good memory, and now every time I learn something new, I completely forget something I've known my whole life. Which I guess can make life interesting. You just keep making the same mistakes that you learn. I've definitely gotten asked questions about have I ever been grabbed on stage, like my junk, which I have. Wow. It's not cool.
No, not at all.
Don't do that. Don't do that to anybody. I'm trying to think. I mean,
that's one right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, oh, you're being funny, but no, it's happened. And you don't really know what to do. You don't know what to do.
It's freaking weird.
Yeah. I think, man, I know I've gotten some good questions. It's hard to get a good interview, and I've never been asked this question. So we're already off on a good foot.
Boom. Something new, something unique.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
So then we'll move to another one. So how was it? Because I realized there was a release during the pandemic from a Future Islands release, and so how was it working on the album during like this period when like we're living in this hellscape?
Yeah. I mean, I guess in some ways it kind of it kind of softened the blow, because we mixed that record. We basically finished tracking in probably early January of 2020. Mm-hmm. And then I went back. So my partner is Swedish. So I finished tracking with the guys, flew over to Sweden, hung with her in Stockholm. And then we were in London for a couple weeks. Cause she was on a job. She's an actor. And then, we're in London, and it starts to get really weird, just like, be hearing more and more about coronavirus and just being like, what's really happening. And I had to leave soon, to get back to mix the record.
Yeah.
But I think I came back on like March 10th or 11th. And then I think lockdown in the city happened on like the 12th or the 13th. It was basically like, I came back and was like, I'll see you in a month and a half. Hopefully everything's okay. And then I got home, everything locked down, borders shut down, flight canceled. And then, it was just like, oh my God, like, I don't know when I'm going to see my lady again. I don't know what is happening. But then and then it was like, hey, I came back. I wish I'd have stayed. But I'm back here now. How are we supposed to mix this record if we're not allowed to be in the same room together? Mm-hmm. We work with Steve Wright, who runs Right Way Studios, which is a great studio over in Remington area. And he basically set us up so we would call in to it's like an audio program, like a server, an internet URL that's a server for high resolution audio. Sure. So he can plug his board, his like professional studio board into this, and we can then go and listen in real time, and he can make changes. So it was kind of interesting because the thing is, like, when you've been in a band this long, you're like so connected that you don't, sometimes you don't even pay attention to each other. It sounds terrible. Right. But I know that if we were mixing that record in a room, probably would have been like staring at our phones and like half listening and half getting things and talk, just kind of getting lost in it or whatever. But instead we would call into this program, and then we would do a Zoom call. Mm-hmm. So we were looking at each other's faces, interacting. We're all stuck in our houses, and it kind of was a little bit therapeutic because it allowed us a chance to connect, in a way. Because also that's the other thing, when you're like such good friends, you don't talk as much because, that's just how sometimes you just kind of, it's like, well, I'll see you for 2 years straight in the bus in a few months. So I'm going to let you have your space right now. Right. I'll be over here, So, it was kind of interesting. So I think it actually gave us a more comfortable air, because we were originally going to release like July or August, and then coronavirus happened, and it was like, why are we going to release in July or August? And then it was a question of, do we even release this record this year, mm-hmm. or do we wait till next year? And then, but will anything be open next year? So I mean, our management asked us that question, like, you just want to hold the record. Our label asked us, and we were like, nah, we want to put it out. And then, because, if we just sat on it, then it's, I don't know, it does no one any value. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like, it doesn't do anybody good, but maybe it'll give somebody, people that care about our music, maybe it'll give them some release within this hellscape. but it was weird I would say it was weirder to release the record than it was to mix it. I mean, it was exciting to put that record together. And, it was the first time we were like co-producers in an album, really heavy handed with the record. Because we had kind of a rush job with the previous record, and we didn't want that to happen to us again. And that's just one of those things you learn. So yeah, it's like the first record that we all like the way it sounds. There's always everybody has one of our records are just like, I hate that one. Well, it makes it sound like this or that, or the bass sounds like this. It's just like these kinds of things. So it was good. But yeah, releasing it was strange, not being able to tour, because we're a touring band. Mm-hmm. We pride ourselves on hitting the road pretty hard. I mean, I think that's going to slow down in the future just because we're getting older. Like, we got a band baby and stuff like that. But it's these things called life.
Yeah, as life comes, and you touched on it. Like, I echo your sentiment about having destroyed knees, and yes, nah, it's not great. And I'm starting, like, cause I'm 36 and my back has been like shit for like the last year, and I'm like, the back is most of your body, so. Yeah,
that's really scary.
Yeah. So I'm going to sort that out. And I did spend like $1,300 on some chair. So we'll sort it out.
Do some crunches, dog. You got to do stomach crunch. You got to tighten up your core, man. You got to protect your back.
Look, I'm going to keep being 300 pounds and enjoying myself and having my bad back. Thank you very much. So now this is a writing question. What inspires you when you're writing, and touch on that, your writing process between writing for Future Islands and writing for Hemlock Ernst?
Well, I guess with a big thing with Future Islands is that I never write without, I guess within rap and Future Islands, I don't write really without music. I need the music. I need the music to feel something. But I think with Future Islands, it's more about, feeling, trying to understand the guy's emotions within the music. I really have to project something of them. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it can't be completely just me, but at the same time, I know that those personal stories are the ones that are going to hit the hardest. But yeah, I think with me in all forms, it's about just feeling the music and trying to translate that into words. And sometimes it's just like you come up with a simple chorus, just like a melody, or sometimes it's just a word that begins. And sometimes you write a whole song and you weren't even trying, and then it's really good. I mean, that's when it's the best, when it just rolls out. But yeah, I think with Hemlock, I dig a lot deeper into things that are harder to say. It allows me, I mean, it's just even just the form, the form of, I remember when we first started our first band, Our Lord and Self-Portraits, it was very much like, I was amazed because I said, well, I'm used to writing pages, pages and pages as a song. And all of a sudden I have to write 16 lines and that's the song. I was like, this is easy. But then I think as I practiced my craft more and understood it more, it was definitely about, well, you better make those lines good. Like, it's only 16 lines, but you better make them good. And then that translated back to rap verse, which is like, how do you make every line count? But with Hemlock, I definitely talk more about just like my personal origin. I'm working on a record right now that deals a lot with kind of like ideas of generational trauma within my own family, or like how am I connected to my grandmother in ways like, so I'm a quarter Filipino, and my mother, or my mother's mother is a Filipino woman, but she died when I was very young. So I kind of like missed a lot of that part of myself,
Sure.
And I think in a way that I'm just realizing now how that was somewhat of an isolating thing, not understanding that. My mom was born there and came over, so she has like slight memories, but not really anything. And yeah, just growing up, what was it like for my mom to grow up in the South, in the 50s, and my grandmother to move there as a in a very small Southern town, and these ideas. So that's something that I don't really dig into. It's like too personal, and I talk about, I had bad drug problems that took me out of college. Like basically, I failed out of school. I used to deal but became a junkie basically. And so I dig into those things, which I allude to in some, in like certain poetic ways in Future Islands. But Future Islands is really about trying to find like certain universals, even within a personal story, but trying to have using a universal language, which anyone can understand. Never trying to be, talking over anyone's head or it's using a certain language of love and despair. But with Hemlock, I can go into kind of really raw spaces, because I don't have to apologize, or I don't have to make it. It's not like my, Garrett's mom's going to listen to it.
No.
Or even my parents. I remember my dad called me one day and he's like, I just listened to this Trouble Knows Me song. Did you really do all that stuff? And I was like, yeah, Dad, I told you not to listen to that. And he's like, it made me real sad. And I was like, don't listen to that stuff.
You don't want to listen to any more of that. Stay out of there.
Not for you. Maybe too deep. But I appreciate it. Like that's, I think it's one of those things. Like I think it's really important for an artist to give that. But I don't know. I mean, my feelings about this changed. I think at some point in the last 4 or 5 years, I've realized that maybe I've given too much of myself to some people to some extent. Maybe I've exposed myself too much. And so that's kind of like where I'm at now in my next phase of life, which is playing with these ideas too about what we share, because we do live in an extremely overexposed age in art where I'm not, these aren't my ideas necessarily, but I've heard other people talk about it, but it's like, I mean, even the idea of like our data being stolen, it's also, or like monetized, it's like people sell their life stories for nothing.
Yeah.
On Instagram or Twitter or whatever, or like me through my music. Like, at least like we're there. That is something that is a part of my business. My art is business.
Sure.
And so you can't, you can only front so much on that. It is a business eventually. Like, and that can be a hard turn, I think, for artists when we were just struggling for 10 years trying to make something of our music, everything was exciting. And then when we started getting paid for our music, then it was a job, and don't lose your job. I mean, it's fun getting to not the top. That's not me, but to see the goal. It feels amazing to reach the goal. But then where are you? You have to make a new goal. You have to understand what it is and you have to hold on to this thing. And I think in a lot of ways, people are quick to give away more. I think maybe I did. Well,
that's one of the things, though. You touched on it, and the just giving away. I run into it on occasion where you put a lot, and especially when it comes to like personal stuff and feeling like you're giving up too much. And I've been playing with this idea of scarcity. I was like, I am putting myself out there, and I've been doing this podcast or doing a podcast for 12 years, and it's only so many characters I can play in a podcast. So, people are seeing a maturation from me being a silly 24-year-old to me being a silly 36-year-old, and being able to track that and document where I was at in my life. And, talk to what you were saying, a lot of it is free. A lot of it is just given away. And there, instances kind of through this podcast where opportunities, access, and money are coming in that it feels like work. And when it starts to feel more and more like work, it's like, but it's still something that you're like, okay, this is something that feels viable and it feels good to be kind of self-made in that regard. But at the same time, it's like I need to have a little bit more scarcity because I am giving away a lot of myself in it. And even recognizing with the people that I'm interviewing, there's a degree of vulnerability in those interviews and in those questions. It's like I try to make it a habit of sharing the questions with people because I'm like, okay, this might be a sore topic with this person, or this person's like, I don't talk about that. It's like, oh shit, my bad. But at the same time, you want to have a really honest conversation and kind of talk about like really what it is to be an artist, what it is to be an entrepreneur, what it is to have connections to Baltimore. And sometimes those are not the easiest conversations. It might be something that's like, yes, I had this really terrible situation. That's how I got to Baltimore. You weren't asking them about that terrible situation, but it is part of the story. So it's kind of being aware of that and just recognizing, like, for me at least, how much are you giving away and how valuable that is, I suppose.
Yeah. Even if it's not, even if it's just, sometimes you got to protect other people too. I with Future Islands, I've really dug into some old relationships, and that left me feeling guilty later and still asking that question of, is it my right to talk about a relationship in a somewhat public manner? Mm-hmm. It's my experience as well, but it is it's cheating a little bit.
Here's my side of the story. No one else.
Yeah, kind of. And I mean, but that's something I've tried to do in my music, which is look at things kind of equally and call myself a piece of shit sometimes too, understanding we have to call ourselves out for these things as well, like understanding our own faults. But that's also growing. I mean, I think you said a really interesting thing just about, doing something for 12 years and being able to hear your growth. Those kinds of things are what I'm really interested in now, because like when we did our last record, As Long As You Are, we were making it and it was like, this is the 6th album. Mm-hmm. But then when it was done and it was out, I realized that it wasn't an album. It was like a chapter, you know what I mean? It was just like, oh, this is like, this isn't just like it's this standalone group of songs. I actually, reference, there's a song called I Knew You, which is a really fucked up true story. You should check out that song, the lyrics. And it is like, it's self-referential. Like, it references a song off our second album, because that person said to me, like, in this instance, basically I was with an ex-partner and she said I could crash at her place. It was all kosher. And then her boyfriend came home in the night and nothing happened. But then, yeah, I thought this guy was going to kill me. And she was just like, what if Long Flight was about you? Like a song from our second album. And I was like, it is about me. It's about both of us, you asshole. Like, why am I here? Because she was like, you just crash. You know, we was us seeing each other for the first time in like 5 years. Yeah. And I thought it was all kosher. And then I realized that she basically used me to get back at her boyfriend because she was pissed off at him about something. And I was like, how are you using me right now? I thought we were trying to like get to a chill place.
Yeah.
Anyways, it sucks. And that was the last time I talked to that person. And that was a story I was never going to tell. Like, right. And then, or I had said to her in coming to that place where we were meeting for the first time, you know, she shared with me how I really hurt her through, you know, as she said, dragging the ghost of our relationship, just like behind me, just like profiting off of this dead dog. Yeah. And I was like, damn, that's dark. And I was like, I won't do that again. I'm sorry. And then she did that. And I was like, fuck this. I'm writing this fucking song. This song is going, this is too good. But I mean, you know, that's messed up. And, you know, my current relationship, which is super solid, it's like I'm just of course, I'm not with her right now because I can only be over there 3 months at a time. And she can't come over here because they're banned from coming over right now. It's rough, but it's such a positive relationship. It's kind of allowed me to see certain things in a different light. I mean, you know, look back at those relationships like, man, what are you doing? But we're young. But when we started dating, I said, you know, I'm never going to write songs about you because every time I did that, it did not end well. So I'm not going to start. But of course I did, because you can't help yourself. You know, you're like inspired. You're like inspired with love or a new feeling. Or like I said, you know, realizing new depths of old relationships and old situations because of a new situation that illuminates something, which isn't necessarily illuminating something positive in yourself, but maybe illuminating certain negative things about myself that I have worked on. Maybe I found growth, or maybe I still need to work on, you know, on these kinds of things. So I mean, but I am a person who, you know, getting back to just the writing question, I'm a person who kind of lives within myself in my writing. And this goes back to when I went off to college and I said I was going to be a conceptual artist. And this was my drive. Like when I went off to school, I wanted to make music, focusing on rap music, but I was planning on being an artist. That was my drive. And then after I failed out of school, I realized that the music was the thing that I still loved. You know what I mean? It was like the music was still there. But when I went off to school, I was like, you know, content is dead. You know, I'm not painting a bowl of fruit. You know, I don't need, you know, there's value in aesthetic, you know, there's value in beauty, to be sure. But I really believe that that art was pretty much done, and what we have to share is ourselves. And I found through writing really deeply about my life, through Future Islands, that it helped people, you know, and the people that would talk to me after shows, you know, really talking about certain songs that meant a lot to me, like a song like Lighthouse in particular, which is a song about suicidal ideation, and a person who kind of helped me at a time when I was really, really deep in a deep spot, and understanding how that song helps other people. You know, it's like, so I tell my story of how I felt and how a person pulled me out into and showed me some light, and then that song goes out to the audience, either on stage or through a record. And then those people get that feeling, and then they understand, they find some light. And to see how much, like, just telling a hard story, it's the same way, like I said, I felt, listening to struggle stories, how it helped me as a kid who felt that I was struggling, So that's kind of my cycle. But at some point you're kind of like, damn, this is like, all right, did I already write this song? After you've written 200 songs, 300 songs, or just like, you either have to dig a little bit deeper or start to look at things from your new perspective, I guess, is a thing. And that's kind of what I was saying with the chapter, where you're just like, oh, this is where we are right now, in our lives. It's not, because Future Islands is not, we're never really trying to reinvent ourselves. We talk about it, but we always find ourselves kind of riding in a similar palette of sounds, because that just feels good to us. It always has. We've always had this kind of 80s, synth vibe, which still pulls some gold. I mean, we're sitting on some tracks for a new record now that I'm really excited about. It sounds like Future Islands. So if you're into it,
oh yeah,
you got to find your niche. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So the last question I have, it's always the Baltimore question. You always have to put it out there, and I like to get people's take on Baltimore. And like I said, and when we got started here, this is a podcast about artists with connections to Baltimore. And so how has it been to be an artist with those Baltimore ties, and describe Baltimore from your vantage point?
So I guess the first time I came to Baltimore was in I think August of 2005 with our first band. It was like the very last tour before that band split up. And it was one of the wildest nights that I've ever had on the road, because we had a buddy who had our van that we had at the time was in the shop. It was our friend who used to be in the band who would quit a couple months after this. And so we asked a good buddy of ours if he would drive, because he had one of these big conversion vans, that had the tiny little DVD or VHS player in it and everything. We were like, could you drive it? And he's like, well, the thing is, I just got a DUI and I'm on some new medication, and maybe it's not a good idea. But if you guys look after me, I can't get in any trouble. This is a 2.5 week tour, around the Northeast and Southeast, just a big loop. Yeah. Chicago, New Orleans, New York, Tallahassee. Those are the 4 points. It's a good amount of space to cover in 2.5 weeks. So the first show was Baltimore. We drove up to Baltimore, and then we were playing. The tour was with our buddy Dan Deacon, great Baltimore musician, and so we were going to play a show at the old Talking Head, and then drive down to Greenville for the second show, and then start the tour. Greenville, North Carolina. That's where we went to college. Mm-hmm. And basically, Oliver, who said, "I will do it, but you have to look after me. Don't let me get in any trouble." As soon as we arrived, he'd already he knew some girl in Baltimore, and she was just there, and she just ran up to him. They started making out and just disappeared. and what ended up happening is we played the show. Then it was we were the first of the night, and some people that were there were like, "Oh, we really wanted to see you play. Will you play our warehouse space?" So then we went over to the second floor of the Copycat Annex on the west side of the building, and played the show at 3 a.m. to a bunch of people who were like, "This city is amazing." And then Oliver is there, and he is wasted and just acting wild. And then a cop comes around, and he's there. He's there lurking, and Oliver just starts walking down the fire escape, flicking the guy off. He's like, "Fuck you." I mean, the cop's over there. He's just watching, and he might do something, but he's not doing anything. And Oliver walks all the way down, flicking him off with a pint of Evan Williams in his hand. And as soon as his foot hits the pavement, The guy swings his car around, guns it, jumps out, grabs Oliver, shakes him. So the bottle drops, smashes on the ground, and then he throws him down, handcuffs him behind his back. And we're all just like, oh shit. So anyways, Oliver is handcuffed, hands behind his back, laying in this broken bottle. And this guy, this big ass dude, is just yelling at him, what the fuck is your fucking name, man? And Oliver's going, my name's Oliver. Let me go. The cop's like, your name's not fucking Oliver. Yeah, it's Oliver. And I look up, and it's the copycat annex is on Oliver Street. The fucking sign's right there. The cop's like, it's not your fucking name. He keeps fucking pulling up the cuffs. Anyways, it was fucked up. And like, you know, we were like, please let him up. But basically, yeah, Oliver, eventually the cop let him go after like 3 hours. And then we went to sleep. And we're just like, yo, Baltimore's crazy. So we drive down the next day. I mean, luckily Oliver didn't go to jail. And then it was just like, hey, you can't drive this tour. We're going to find you're staying here. Like, oh, for real? And like, yeah, fuck you, dude. You cannot be on tour with us, dude, pulling this shit. So that was our first introduction to Baltimore. And the whole thing was like Dan moved here right around the same time. And then through, you know, this is summer 2005. And then in the end of 2005, Art Lord broke up. And the beginning of 2006, Future Islands began. I mean, a lot of stuff happened. Like, you know, I left Greenville in July of 2006 to get cleaned up off drugs. And then William left Greenville, and then in end of 2007, I was kind of lived out in my van in 2006, and then 2007 I moved to Asheville, North Carolina for a year, just to like a healthy place, or trying to find a healthy place. And then in the end of 2007 was when me and William were kind of like, I called him up one day and was like, hey man, I don't want to be in Asheville anymore, and I think I'm going to move to Baltimore and get in with Dan, you know, because Dan Deacon is just like constantly 05, 06, 07, like, hey, you guys, come and be a part of this thing. I feel like you aren't doing anything, because Dan always really believed in what we were doing, and we always felt like a kinship with him, because like we were this, you know, keyboard band in North Carolina in 05, which isn't, or from 03 to 05, like that's not really weird now. There's like a really awesome band called Sylvan Esso that's out of North Carolina now, and they're all electronic, and you know, it's like, where were you guys when we had a couple friends, but we were always just seen as this very weird band. We were just like, because North Carolina is just like very guitar centric, rock music and all country and this and that, and we were just doing a different thing. And when we ended up moving to Baltimore, because Dan was like, you know, there's all these other artists who are doing stuff. I think you guys would be really inspired, you know, come and be a part. And yeah, then it was, you know, Future Islands was just kind of floundering. So when me and William decided to move here, you know, I called him and said, I want to move to Baltimore because I'm tired of delivering dominoes and like not making music. I want to at least deliver dominoes in Baltimore or something. Like, I got to do something. I feel like I'm wasting away out here. And William's like, oh, that's what I want to do. And so we were like, cool, we'll start a new band in Baltimore. Like, the idea was that Future Islands might be done. But then Garrett came up so I moved up, William moved up November 2007. I moved up January 2008. And Garrett moved in July of 2008. And then we went on our first U.S. tour in July of 2008, and then just stayed on the road. I mean, the big thing was, it was kind of like Baltimore like gave us a new confidence. It was almost like it gave us the confidence to take, if we made the step here, then we could make a bigger step out. And then we just kept, you know, going out. But it was really funny to me because when I moved here, within my first week, you know, I was just, you know, going out trying to, you know, going over to upstairs to Auto Bar, going to the Club Charles, and me and William would go out together, because before Garrett got up, And because I was just sleeping on the floor at the living room of the house William was staying at. And this is before FaceTime existed, but or I don't think FaceTime existed, but we were like, let's go get some FaceTime in. See what, I'm just like, check out girls like, whoa, like Baltimore, wow. But it's like really looking gnarly. We were gnarly looking dudes. But that whole thing was I was running into friends everywhere, and I realized that I had more friends in Baltimore, in a city I'd never lived in, than I had in Asheville, a city that I had lived in for a whole year. And I felt more comfortable. I felt more excited. But that's like, I think for us, Baltimore changed our lives in a lot of ways. And the people that we've met, and just gave us a confidence to, because we were stuck in North Carolina. We were comfortable with those things, the comfortable being comfortable, you know what I mean? And I think Baltimore showed us just another side of life, and it taught us about work. And I met so many good people in this city, and so many people that do so many different things it's just like constantly inspiring. But I mean, to be honest, I haven't, at that same time, like I haven't really even been around in the last few years, just because I've been out in Sweden with my lady when I can, or out on the road. Mm-hmm. So there's like I was saying earlier, like finding out about new stuff and seeing what new people are doing is always exciting, and seeing some folks that I guess are like really starting to hit, or just like, you see the people that want to work, because there is, being a person who didn't really get it for a while, and seeing my friends that drop off, the people that, because sometimes sometimes you're just like, I can't keep doing this, I can't keep struggling with this music and trying to do the thing. Sometimes it's just like a lucky break, or like one good show will keep you going for another month or two, and sometimes that just runs out. But I really respect, when I really appreciate seeing people that grind really hard, and coming out of the city, because I want to see this city rise. I mean, we didn't move to New York for certain reasons, that just seemed like too far, and it didn't seem right. Like, and this city has so much soul in a different way, and just like a realness that I think speaks to what we're about, which is just hard work. That's like Future Islands is like hard work. That's pretty much us.
I dig it, and that is good to hear that. And that is pretty much all I have in terms of questions.
I burned up 30 minutes.
No. You're good. You're good. And I want to give you the opportunity to shamelessly plug, because I'd like to give everyone an opportunity to shamelessly plug. So, your social media, website, whatever you want to share. And thank you so much. This has been everything that I was hoping.
Oh yeah, I really appreciate it, Rob. It's been a pleasure talking. And if you ever need to talk again, feel free to hit me up anytime.
Absolutely. So where can he find you on social media, and then the Future Islands website and all of that good stuff?
Yeah, you can't really find me. I'm on Instagram, Hemlock Ernst. You can look that up, but I don't really do anything on it. I got a girl now. When I didn't have a girl, I was all up on Instagram, putting up silly pictures, taking, I go back in time and I'm like, damn, dude, you post a lot of garbage. Come on, man. But I hooked one.
That's all I'm at the end of the day.
I got my lady now. So, but yeah, I want Hemlock Ernst. Like I plug some music on there. You can check out Future Islands on Twitter, Future Islands on Instagram. I don't even know what our website is, but we'll be out. Like Future Islands is going to be out on the road come August 31st. Well, if it holds. So I look forward to it. I'm nervous. Like, I'm never nervous, but just like anxious to do this thing again. I mean, it's been so long. It's been a long time.
Yeah. But
I think it's just going to come back. I think it's just going to flood back in the body, and all will feel right. I need to shine for a minute. My girl, I think she's like, you need to get on stage. But I don't want you moping around and be like, I had a bad day. It's like, you need to get on stage. Because I start doing myself.
Guy. You're definitely an orange stage guy.
I'm an orange stage guy.
Yeah.
If you don't know me and you're listening to this, you should know me. I'm real good at this. I'm a humble man, but I'm a damn good performer.
Yes, I mean, I can't knock it. I was going through and looking at some videos, and I was like, I am now intimidated. I don't know what I'm going to say to this dude now. I was like, this is going to be some shit. I was like, I'm going to be a complete hack. Let's see what happens. But so I'll do my sign off. And again, thank you so much for being on this podcast. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm really honored to have chatted with you for the better part of an hour. This has been great.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Rob. I really appreciate it.
So for Samuel Herring, I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.